Welcome to BBC Points West with Alex Lovell and David Garmston, and a warm welcome to Spotlight viewers who are joining us tonight because of major technical problems.
Our main story tonight, a new era for Concorde. The supersonic aircraft finally gets a permanent home after more than a decade out in the cold.
If you've ever dreamed of seeing inside the cockpit of a Concorde, the good news is now planning permission has been granted. The new museum can finally be built.
Our other headlines tonight: the house where a man died and it took months before anyone noticed.
Forced to lock away life-saving equipment because of vandals, but will the new cabinets cost vital minutes?
And join me learning how to bounce in Europe's biggest indoor trampolining centre.
Good evening. Concorde is to be the star attraction at a new museum in Filton that will teach future generations about one of the proudest eras in Bristol's history.
Concorde 216, the last supersonic passenger plane to be built, will be open to the public more than a decade after she touched down in Filton for the last time. Where Charlotte Callan joins us from Filton next to the plane that flew faster than a speeding bullet.
Yes, Concorde's been sitting here since 2003 when she made her final flight back to the Filton runway. Now, this is Airbus land, and Airbus are the company who are her custodians at the moment, and they spent nearly £2 million since she made her final flight, making sure that there's no corrosion. They even turn the wheels of the plane to make sure when they need to move her to a new home that she'll be able to move freely. You should be able to see just in the distance the two World War I hangars where they'll house part of the new aerospace collection, and they'll also build a new hangar, of course, for their star attraction, which is Concorde. Of course, we must never forget how much she means to us here in the West.
And she rose. Concorde accelerates.
1969, Concorde's first flight out of Filton. The sonic boom heralded a new era of travel in the skies.
The Concorde is the combined undertaking of Britain and France. British contributions are underway at Weybridge, Filton and Preston.
This was a plane that was way ahead of its time, travelling at twice the speed of sound. It was a feat of engineering that surpassed anything paying passengers had experienced before. It flew the rich and famous, and many who spent their hard-earned savings through the air for 27 years. But the flights were too costly, and she was finally grounded on a chilly November day in 2003.
That was the most magnificent sight. Oh, just absolutely glorious sight. Oh, the nation's losing a treasure, I tell you, an absolute treasure.
The plane is back home and stands here on the side of the runway in Filton. 12 years on, our wait for a new home, where the paying public can view her once again, will soon be over. The SS Great Britain is frequently voted one of the best visitor attractions in the UK, so with some advice from them on how to pull in the crowds, and crucial planning permission granted, building work can begin. £14.5 million of the £16 million needed has already been raised.
What we're going to see in the BAC Learning Centre, children coming in, seeing a bit about the heritage of aircraft and the ability also to look into the future, what could happen. Perhaps if we can motivate, stimulate some youngsters in the Heritage Centre, they'll also come and work here and develop aircraft for the future as well.
It's hoped the visitor attraction, where Concorde will be the star performer, will bring in millions of pounds to the region and inspire school children from all around.
Well, we've come on board the plane, and the great news about that new museum is that you will be able to see inside the cockpit, and also, of course, inside of even the toilets where many celebrities would have gone when they were on board. Up to 100 passengers could fly on the plane, and reportedly Joan Collins liked to sit on these front seats. We're lucky today to be joined by Lloyd Burnell, who is in charge of building the new museum. You've got most of the funding, but where are you going to get the rest from?
Well, the total project cost is £16.8 million. We've raised just over £14.5 million so far and are securing another £1 million in loan financing. So we've got enough funding to be able to get the project away, but we've still got a £2.3 million funding target.
The key with attractions like this is getting people through the doors. What's going to be special about it?
Well, apart from Concorde, of course, there's a wonderful collection that's currently in the Brabazon Hangar, nationally significant archive, and those are going to be used to create some really superb exhibitions in one of the listed buildings. So it'll be a really rich and engaging visitor experience.
The good news is that you hope to have the museum open by 2017, so you too can come on board Concorde and take a look around.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. And there are such fond memories of Concorde, of course, and many of them have been sent in to us today. Now, in other news, detectives from the Met Police are trying to find the victim of a serious sexual attack, who they believe is from Bristol. The assault happened on Caledonian Road in North London in the early hours of Sunday, the 1st of March. 2 passers-by managed to restrain the attacker until police arrived, but the woman victim ran away.
If you're Spotlight viewers and you're wondering what's happened, you've got Points West tonight because of last-minute technical problems your end. Apologies for that, but we will try and fill you in on some of your main news stories too. And a report into Plymouth, Derriford and Mount Gould hospitals has rated some services as inadequate. It says people are waiting too long for operations and test results, and the situation in A&E is described as unacceptable for patients. Overall, the Care Quality Commission report rated Plymouth Hospital's NHS Trust as requiring improvement, but it praises the care provided by staff.
We found caring was absolutely outstanding. Particularly good in children's, maternity and end-of-life care. We judged that leadership overall was good, but the area that really needs attention is the responsiveness of services. We've judged those to be inadequate, which is our lowest rating.
And Plymouth Hospital's NHS Trust says it's proud of the high standard of care and that it's putting measures in place to deal with the problems identified.
People living on a street in Gloucester say they're dismayed that a neighbour was dead in his home for months before being discovered. Mike Cook was 67 years old. His death has raised concerns about older people becoming lonely and isolated. Scott Ellis reports.
An ordinary terrace street in Gloucester. Kingsholm Rugby Club just a few hundred metres to one side. And over here, what was the home of 67-year-old Mike Cook, a retired postman. The police were called here on May the 18th, broke the door down and found his body on the landing. It was badly decomposed. It's likely he died many months before. In fact, neighbours have told us they hadn't seen him since before Christmas. Ultimately, it was neighbours who raised the alarm. A builder looking through a back window had spotted algae growing in Mike Cook's washing up bowl. The window cleaner hadn't been paid for months. There were signs of a fly infestation.
It's a shame that no one knew he was there for so long.
Around here, people always knew each other, homes, like you always knew your neighbours and everything, but then times has changed such a lot since I've been in the street.
Some people that get older, they don't like to be a burden, do they? Or they don't like to make a fuss, you know, especially if they've been independent for quite a bit of their lives.
At Age UK in Gloucester, they're equally saddened but not shocked. Others have died alone and in isolation. Nationally, Age UK estimates 600,000 older people leave their home just once a week. 1 million haven't spoken to anyone for a month, and 5 million regard their TV to be their main form of companionship. And if you're elderly and independently minded, beware.
What builds resilience in older age is thinking about your finances, thinking about your support needs that you've got going forward, but it's also about what networks have you got, how do you stay connected to your community and make sure that you've always got people there who are going to be interested in you and that you in turn will be interested in, so that we don't get to this sort of tragic situation again.
Mike Cook does have family here in Gloucestershire and we have contacted them, although they don't wish to be interviewed. The police have told us there are no suspicious circumstances surrounding his death. Scott Ellis, BBC Points West, Gloucester.
Well, it's good to have your company on this Tuesday evening, wherever you're watching, and to our new viewers as well. But do stay with us.
Yes, I've always wanted to go to Devon and Cornwall. We're also off to Rome, where the Mayor, George Ferguson, has been meeting the Pope.
And anyone for croquet? We meet the local ladies competing in the World Championships. All that to come, but first, 8 people have died in recent years along a stretch of the River Avon in Bath. And yet lifebuoys along the riverbank are continually vandalised or stolen. So now the local council has come up with a solution. In future, life-saving equipment will be locked away in special cabinets. 14 have now been installed, and Clinton Rogers has been to see how the new system should work.
One picture that tells the whole story. On the right, an old lifebuoy station missing its vital life-saving equipment. On the left, what they hope will be the answer.
This is a vandalised lifebuoy station. There should be a lifebuoy here, there's not one available.
Right.
But if you walk with me this way, you'll see we've got a better idea. And this is one of the rivers...
This is the new station here?
Yes, this is the new river.
So just explain to me then how this is going to work.
Well, if a member of the public sees somebody who's in distress in the water, the first thing that we get them to do, and we must send this message quite clearly, is to phone the Fire and Rescue Service and give them that number.
And then what do they do?
Well, when you get this identification number for this cabinet, they're then given a bespoke code.
For here?
To punch into that keypad.
We're not going to punch that code in for obvious reasons. This one is open already.
That's correct. And then this is what they see.
Ideal? Well, maybe not, but the local council says that when you've had 51 lifebuoys, either damaged or stolen, what else could be done?
It is perhaps a sad reflection on society today that the very equipment designed to save lives on the water is having to be locked away. But my question is this: how long will it take for me to get my phone, dial 999, speak to the fire brigade, get the access code, punch it in, open this cabinet, and then throw the lifebuoy into the water?
Well, the council knows the answer to that because it's been tested.
The testing is working out around about 2 minutes from the time that you phone to the time that you can deploy the lifebuoy.
Hang on, however, 2 minutes. If by the time I've made a phone call to throwing that in the water is 2 minutes, that's not fast enough, is it?
I would agree with you. It isn't at present, but that time will come down, because don't forget we're dealing with something which is in development stage. We're now actually putting it out there. Those times will come down dramatically. I think they'll come down to less than a minute.
Well, it's an idea that was attracting interest today. The hope is it will save lives. Clinton Rogers, BBC Points West, Bath.
Of course, it's a problem not only in Bath, but throughout the southwest. Now, in other news, Devon and Cornwall's Police and Crime Commissioner, Tony Hogg, has confirmed he won't be standing for re-election when his term ends next May. Over the last few years, the Devon and Cornwall force has been struggling with budget and staff cuts. Mr Hogg says he will continue to push for a better funding deal for the police and work with the Chief Constable on a new policing model.
Friends of the murdered Bristol teenager Becky Watts have started a crowdfunding campaign to install a light in her memory in a park near her home. It would sit alongside an existing graffiti mural in St George's Park. Students from KTS training, where Becky went to college, kick-started the fundraising by doing a 5-mile charity walk last week.
The Energy Secretary, Amber Rudd, says she hopes the contract to build a new nuclear power plant at Hinkley Point can be agreed by the end of the year. It's the price of energy that will be generated at the site which is in dispute. A number of European energy companies and campaign groups have launched legal action at the European Court of Justice.
In terms of my confidence going forward, what I can tell you is I haven't got the scars of the past 3 to 4 years, or 2.5 years, as my permanent secretary may have, in terms of taking forward that negotiation. But I have met the